Hi, my name is Matthew Summers. This is for my capstone class progress for my project that I'm working on. My basic project is to set up a working network and everything for my new business and design it and set up how I want it all set up and create a project and get a SharePoint running. And I had started doing really well in the very beginning of it. I set up a 2012 R2 domain controller. I set up a SharePoint server and a couple of other tools using an Apache server to host my site. And I was going to do it all internally on my server, but then one full set of DIMMs all failed on my server, and I have not financially been able to replace it ever since. But basically I went from 24 gigs of RAM down to about 6. Still both Xeons are working, but everything's dead. So I lost all my work after I did that. But I had already set up everything to work within Office 365 already, because my email's been working under SurgeonSec for about 2 years now, because it's always been a pet project that I've been working on. So I finally got ahead and I started the SharePoint. I had to take all the work that I originally did on my local server, and because it was all lost, I had to all recreate it again, but it's all right, learning curve. This is a general SharePoint site for files and keeping everything in, but I created a wiki site. That was the main part of that I wanted to do with this project. I've been keeping documents of some capture the flags that I've been doing. And then most importantly, I created a wiki to keep information in that will be helpful along the way. I got the general top 10 OWASP, which is always requested, some PowerShell cheat sheet, Metasploit cheat sheet for going through everything, Wireshark. I didn't get that one. That was a weird file. I couldn't get working quite right. Nmap, ever so important Nmap cheat sheet. And then I also wrote a simple splash page resume for myself. In the process, I got a Linode server that's hosting this since my Apache servers failed, and luckily I had a local copy on my workstation here and was able to move it up onto Linode and set up an Apache server on there running Ubuntu 16.04, I believe. Set up the Linode. I hardened my Apache server, and I don't have MySQL or any other regular LAMP, just the Apache part of it, because I don't need PHP. I don't need any of that, and usually that stuff just opens you up anyways. You can see that it's all handwritten. It's not a WordPress or anything like that, because working in security at work all the time as I do now, WordPress is a nightmare, and I don't even want to bother trying to harden it enough to where it's not going to just be hacked after the next vulnerability comes out. You can go to it. It's surgeon-sec.com, fully working, and I've been updating the blog on it. I've been working on my OSCP certification. Along with also, I created a Visio drawing for the basic layout of how I would create my network, and the general rule of thumb for how most networks, at least at work as a consultant, like I do right now, how I set them up. Having load balance 2 ISP pipes coming into the main router, manageable switches set up for VLANs to separate. Obviously, I'd have firewall rules separating certain segments. I have my Active Directory container here, and the layout of how I would set up my internal servers. This has changed, obviously, since when I originally wrote it. Personally, I would choose to have internal servers, but since I had Office 365, I chose to leave these as is for the time being, because if I were to start this business for real and had the option to build these, I would still do it in the same manner. I would still utilize Office 365, but I'd probably put the ADFS server in place to use Kerberos to do my authentication. General office lines, if you follow where these people have permissions on here, you would see that financing, marketing, pen testers, interns, me as CEO, having everything. And those utilizing the areas and the VLANs that they're working on, along with also a phone system that I would use, the Ubiquity phone system, as I like the Unify Ubiquity products and their open source nature. Even though they're closed source, it's still pretty open to do with what you will. Conference room area and pen testers containers of how their network would be set up. Also showing that I would use the type of Wi-Fi I would use in the authentication process and everything. And I also created a project list, although I have not finished working on this. Going through the actual physical setting up and doing everything, including mounting the switches and punching down the cables and running the cables, all set up in time periods relative to my experience, to show how I would execute this plan. Although I still have quite a ways to go. I got basically to setting up the Unify switches, but I still have to do first setting up workstations, building the global policy, and setting up everything. I chose Windows as the main authentication platform because I believe Kerberos and LDAP and how they work with other enterprise tools like LastPass and your phone systems and everything is much easier and business friendly, opposed to where Linux is much more forgiving on some customizing, but you have to spend too much time, and where the company, I would rather have it focused on doing the work as security auditing instead of focusing on trying to keep itself going all the time. Where sometimes Linux, if it's working all the time, but when it breaks, there can be some troubleshooting and things like that. Not to say that Windows doesn't ever break. Thankfully it does. That's why I have a job. That's pretty much it for now. I'm hoping soon to finish the projects and finish my wiki, because I feel like the wiki still needs some more work done. Bulletin boards and such forth. I'm probably going to end up making you a temporary user. I'll just pay for the license for like 2 months so that you can actually log in and utilize it as you would a worker, maybe even assign work over the bulletin board and how the wiki's set up. So, and probably set your permissions. I look forward to hearing your feedback. Thank you very much.